I saw that President Biden is taking a page from the man he despises, Donald Trump, and he's building a wall or rebuilding the border wall. But you know what I'm wondering?
About 26 miles, actually, and Jersey barriers is what they're talking about. That's just money they have to spend, but they're being pushed to do it. In fact, the White House press secretary said Trump pushed them to do it today. Who's the president, Trump or Biden?
Well, not only that, are they building the wall to keep people out or to keep people in?
They're doing it for campaign reasons, my friend. They're in the tank on immigration.
Well, no question. No question at all. And here you've got Governor Hochul from New York. You've got the Mayor Adams, Eric Adams in New York City, all strong Democrats. And by the way,
they're saying New York can't take any more immigrants, illegal immigrants.
New York is a major player in politics. New York State, New York City.
Crime, immigration, and the economy, 3 top issues. No question about it. And Biden's on the wrong side of all of those right now. I mean, he's really it's about 30% on those issues for him.
So he's losing on immigration, and he's looking to build the wall. What is he going to accomplish? I mean,
well, we have the laws right now. All he has to do is follow the laws and turn those people back. We don't need any more laws. The fact is, nobody has a right. It's a privilege to come into this country.
No question about that. But here's my question. He is now acknowledging, one, regardless of whether you say Jersey barriers, regardless, he is acknowledging that immigration is a problem.
A huge problem.
Number 2, he's acknowledging that Donald Trump actually had the right answer. And number 3, he's ignoring the problems that he's already created. New York City.
He created those problems on the border on day one.
I know.
And he said in the campaign he would never build not 1 mile more of the wall.
And here he is saying,
right.
To me, I am.
It's
by the way,
complete capitulation, really.
All right, we're talking with Marc Rotterman, and by the way, in your capacity as a consultant, but also in the area of marketing and communications and setting the storyline, the narrative, as they say. As a Democrat, what's my narrative now? I'm running as a Democrat in.
Well, you run away from Biden. And by the way, you can take what he said prior to being elected to what he's doing now. It's a flip-flop ad that he's created himself.
So what do the Democrats do? How do they, what's the narrative for the national campaign?
Well, they have to individualize their own races. That's what they have to do. They're not going to want Biden in their district unless it's the bluest of blue districts. They're not going to want him there. And by the way, why would you? I mean, the guy can't draw a fly. Take a look at the people that Trump gets, 20, 30,000 people. They're hard-pressed to get people to come to a Biden event.
Oh, okay. I'm sitting here, I'm talking to my constituents as a Democrat, and they say, what are you doing about immigration? Well, we're trying to smooth that situation out. We're trying to create new lines of means or for them to enter the country.
Well, their line is comprehensive immigration reform, which they've been talking about for 30, 40 years.
So where is the wall a comprehensive immigration reform?
Walls work.
Oh, no question.
Okay, they work for Israel. They work with the Palestinians. They don't have that many terrorists anymore. And by the way, we've had 1.5 million gotaways. How many are terrorists?
Okay, let me throw this one at you. Newsweek article a week and a half ago. Newsweek acknowledged, and we're going to go to a break on this one, then we'll get your response when we come back. The FBI and the CIA both have acknowledged, this comes from Newsweek, that there are definite Chinese and Russian military operatives that have gotten into the country. We're going to take a break on that.
Right.
I want to get Marc's response on that. You're listening to Viewpoints on the Talk Station FM 107.1. It's a real pleasure to have Marc Rotterman right here in the flesh, in the studio. And, we're not doing autographs today, but we'll stay with us for more. All right. I want to go back to the question I asked a few moments ago. The fact, and we're going to move on to other items. We've got the speaker's race we got to talk about. We've also got to talk about the impact this is going to have on North Carolina politics in light of the fact that two of the members of Congress played active roles in that situation. But before I do that, the fact that Newsweek actually disclosed that the CIA and the FBI are concerned that there are foreign operatives who have an avowed adversarial relationship, China and Russia, possibly North Korea mixed into that. We don't know much about that. They acknowledge they have operatives that have gotten through.
I think there's a lot more than that, too, from Mideast countries. But it's a national security issue, pure and simple. And by the way, fentanyl is a national security issue.
That's another aspect of it.
We've lost over 120,000 folks. That's more than Vietnam, Korea, and Iraq. And how long are the American people going to put up with this? I mean, Biden is derelict in his duty on many issues. I frankly think he should be impeached for failure to defend the southern border.
You know, we talked about this off air.
Right.
About the issue of the amount of homeless people in this country.
Right.
And how it's become almost epidemic. You just shared with me a thought that I hadn't considered, and that is foreign governments are further enhancing the drug trade in the U.S. And to your point a moment ago, if you're a drug addict, you have a condition, a mental condition. It is a mental health issue as well as it is a physical health issue.
Right.
And a lot of these people have become homeless because they become drug addicts, and they can't maintain the addiction. They're
Well, you have open air drug markets now in Seattle, other places. I mean, that is not a good condition for a city to thrive.
But we don't have a national campaign here to determine the cause of it. We're treating the symptoms, but we're not treating the cause. And the cause is, to your point a moment ago, the free flow of drugs coming in.
They're flooding the zone with drugs, cocaine, methamphetamine, fentanyl. I mean, it's absurd what's happening in this country.
And they're killing the state.
And by the way, I mean, a kid who smokes a joint today, they don't know what's in it.
No. And by the way, the joints that they're selling now are far more
Potent.
THC
has been ramped up.
So here's the point, the good point here. So if you're going to destroy the country, flood it with illegals who are by nature not part of the program.
They don't know the history of this country.
They're not really interested.
Okay, tell the kids that America's a bad country. Teach them that it's a bad country. By the way, tell the kids that because of climate change, everybody's going to, die in 12 years. They keep telling this every 12 years.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's the point. I mean, they're not focused. Ruin the institutions of education, disrupt the elections. I mean, I don't see anybody complaining that Hillary Clinton said that the election was stolen from her in 2016. And by the way, take the leading guy who's winning overwhelmingly in the polls and hound him legally, costing him millions and millions. By the way, his ability to make money, you now have a New York court that's monitoring his business transactions. Every real estate guy, every real estate guy, they value their property a little higher, right? The developers. But do you think the banks went in and just said, okay, Donald Trump, I agree with you? No, they do their due diligence, and everybody was paid. And who was the aggrieved party?
By the way, speaking of that, what brought us down in 2009, 2006, 7, and 9, 8, 9? It was overvaluation of real estate.
Right.
That was perpetrated by the rating agencies with the acknowledgement of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac.
Right.
They were all in favor of that.
Well, do you think Deutsche Bank would have backed Trump if they thought his properties weren't worth a lot of money?
No. Yeah. And you're telling me they don't do their own due diligence?
That's what I'm saying.
No.
I mean, they didn't take his word for it. Everybody was paid back. He didn't default. But now they're coming after him because he said what his properties were worth.
And we was successful.
Right.
All right. We're talking with Marc Rotterman. We've jumped from the issue of immigration, but also the destruction of this country. Think about it. We've increased the amount of homelessness. We've increased the amount of immigrants. We're destroying the institutions, as you said just a moment ago. Now we have some problems. We have
30,000 per pupil in New York. How are they doing? Public education. Why are people fleeing to schools of choice, to charter schools? Because their kids can't go to get a good education. African Americans want their kids to go to private schools. They want them to go to charter schools
because they
want
see
school choice. They see the value. Right.
All right. So now we're seeing this play out in Washington, D.C. We've got the speaker's race. We're going to go to a break here in a few moments. But before we do that, let's talk about Kevin McCarthy and the impacts of that decision. And by the way, it's somewhat of a surprise. Apparently, the former speaker, Representative McCarthy, had an agreement with the former speaker, previous speaker, Nancy Pelosi, that the Democrats were going to provide the additional votes to keep him as speaker. They didn't fulfill. Why not?
Well, they wanted chaos. Okay, so what Matt Gaetz did
but pardon me,
they got the chaos. They got chaos, but I think it's a blip. Let me say, McCarthy sent Patrick McHenry on the debt limit, not to deal with the U.S. Senate, which was where they should have dealt. They dealt with the debt limit with the White House, and it was 1.2 trillion. It got bumped up to what, $3 trillion? Right. And you call that a win? Okay. I admire Patrick McHenry in a lot of ways, and I'm glad he evicted Nancy Pelosi because the former speaker is supposed to have those little cubby holes, and so that goes to McCarthy now. But McHenry is not a great McHenry's not in great shape right now because he's not as close with Jordan, or he's not as close with Congressman Scalise, who's up. I think those are the two front runners. So his position may be weakened. But let's be honest. We need a street fighter if you're a conservative in that role. Okay, you don't need somebody that's beholden to K Street.
You know, it's interesting. The common theme here is chaos. And here's my point.
Right.
We've just talked about the chaos created in this country by illegal immigrants, the chaos created in this country by the flood of drugs, the chaos created in this country by the destruction of various institutions, education being one of them, law being another one. And
a lot of this started with COVID too.
Okay.
You couldn't go to church. They're telling the churches you can't.
But you can go to Walmart.
You can go to Walmart, but you can't go to a gun range. I mean, it was. But what would really freak me out, to be candid with you, is how the American people rolled over for all this, because we just let them take our rights.
I was critical. Yesterday was a national test of the National Emergency System, the EAS.
I feel better already than it worked.
Yes, right. Yeah. But I commented. It was akin to a national training exercise.
Right.
And
you're onto something there.
Slowly but surely, we're being trained to follow the rules set down by someone in Washington or wherever. So chaos, chaos is, wasn't there a operation, Rush Limbaugh.
Right.
Operation Chaos.
Sorely missed now.
Operation Chaos, that's right. So chaos is what they're producing. They're producing it in Washington, D.C. What is the purpose of doing that in light of the fact that the president now has announced he's going to build a wall, well, questionable, and he's being forced into it by former President Trump, okay? So what again is the benefit to the Democrat Party for what they did with Kevin McCarthy? They set him up for a fall.
Well, that's true, but let me tell you, my good friend Newt Gingrich thinks that the 8 that went against McCarthy should be expelled.
I know.
I would propose or say to you, consider this. I think 40 years ago, Newt would have been with him. But he's very close to McCarthy, and he had his ear. I don't think he'll have Scalise's ear as much. And Newt was trying to really help him. But we don't have regular order up there. They give these guys an omnibus bill. They have all the budget stuff in it. They don't have time to read it, and they say pass it. And that's how you get all this BS in these bills. And we're taking in $5 trillion in taxes, and we're spending $7 trillion. How's that working out for the American people?
Okay. You bring up the issue now, the American people. We're going to get to that in a moment. What next now with the speaker's race? Because the two frontrunners, Steve Scalise, Congressman Scalise, and Jim Jordan,
and you have Congressman Tom Cole, and you have Congressman Emmer. They're gonna meet Wednesday. You're gonna have some sort they'll all make their presentations. I don't think you'll have a speaker probably to the end of the week. If I were to bet, I bet it's going to be Scalise.
Really?
Yeah, because it's hard to go against the guy. He's a conservative. I mean, remember, he was shot, almost died by a Bernie brother, a leftist radical, okay? Jordan would be, in my mind, the best guy. He's a street fighter. I just don't know if he can pull it all together because the moderates may not go from New York and California for him.
But Jim Jordan has the street, I will use the word street credentials, the street creds.
He's a street fighter.
He's a street fighter.
And he's very close to Donald Trump.
And we talked about the issue. You know, you say he's close to Donald. There's never been this sense that he's cloying. He's running to
but
be.
But he is an advocate for Trump. There's no question about it.
Okay.
Mark Meadows was an advocate for Trump. Okay. You look at all those guys. They were there for Trump. They were there for him to campaign. They go down to Mar-a-Lago. Look, I like Jordan. I'll tell you this. He's done a heck of a job on the Judiciary Committee.
That's what it's going to bring up.
I would say if you're going to say one thing that synopsizes the Biden administration, of all the things we just talked about, it's lawlessness at every turn. His son, it's everything they do.
Case in point, you've got now whole business of Starbucks is now leaving San Francisco.
Right.
I mean, think about that.
It's the way they conduct business, though. He conducts his business like a mafia don. His son was writing off escorts on his taxes.
I know.
I mean,
you're
what kind of accountant's going along with that deal?
All right, we're talking with Marc Rotterman. He's here in the studio. I really appreciate this. All right, before we go to the break, the question I have is, and Jim Jordan once before was suggested as a speaker and turned it down. And the reason was he was focused on his capacity as House Judiciary and House Oversight.
Right.
So he has expressed willingness to be.
He's trying to pull it together now. What's happening right now is calls. Jordan's calling all the members. Scalise is calling all the members. Everybody is talking, and they're picking sides, is what they're doing, and they're all pressuring each other to vote for A, B, C, or whoever it is. Scalise has the advantage on the first vote. If he doesn't get the first vote for speakership, it's anybody's ball game.
Why does he have this, in your opinion, has the...
Well, I've talked to a lot of people up there, and I've talked to people at Newsmax, and people have been covering the Hill for decades, okay? One of my friends, John Gizzi with Newsmax, excellent column, he writes. And he knows all those players, okay? And he thinks Scalise is his, but he doesn't have the numbers yet, but he's the favorite going into the first vote. But once you open that up, it's anybody's ball game.
All right. It's Viewpoints on the Talk Station, and the conversation we're having here off air is fantastic. Okay, I just said something to Mark that he even acknowledged might be an intelligent comment. Thank you very much. As a Democrat candidate,
I do what I can do.
Okay, thank you. As a Democrat candidate, you hand me the keys. I'm going to say to you, I don't want to drive this car.
In other words, you don't want to be the Democratic nominee for president.
I don't want to be Democrat nominee.
My point was, I think the super delegates are going to come to Michelle Obama at the convention and say, Joe, you got to go. We want Michelle Obama to be the nominee. She's the most admired woman in the country. And that puts Barack Obama right back in the White House.
But I acknowledge that, but I don't see that happening because I'm telling you, even if you did win the presidential nomination, and pardon me, the presidential race, I'm thinking
you won the primary for the Democrats, correct?
And even if you won I don't think I question at this point how the Democrat senators and Democrat congresspeople are going to overcome what the destruction of the party is right now.
Well, I think you're exactly right on that, and I will tell you why. Because they're going to have to individualize their own races. They're clearly not going to run on Biden's record. There's no question about it.
They can't win. They cannot win.
And it always does come down to the economy, and his numbers are in the 30s on the economy. The average American person is getting less for their dollar than they ever have. And inflation is up, but more importantly, even if inflation comes down, prices are still up. Look at what's going on with gas. Look at what's going on with groceries.
Okay, one of today, of course, Kaiser Permanente went on strike.
75,000 people.
All right. You know, one of the complaints they have, it's not just money, it's their overwork. They do not have adequate staff. Why don't they have adequate staff? Why don't businesses have adequate personnel in their offices?
Well, look what's happening with UAW, and it's striking right now because they cannot keep up with inflation. It's going to cost cars to go up, and one of the real reasons.
And who pays for
and
those
by the
cars?
way, the pushing of this EV, the EVs, the electric cars are sitting on the lots. People don't want them.
No, and their price is going to go up as a result. So who are the buyers for these cars? Not the white collar, the blue collar. They're the people that are buying the cars because they need the transportation. They're not going to be able to afford it.
Well, what's an F-150 cost you these days? 70, 80 grand?
Right.
I mean, who can afford that? I had an F-150 in 1978, $3,500. Realistic, I mean, it's crazy.
And we're now looking at mortgage rates going 7 and 8%.
8% minimum.
And then on top of that,
mortgage applications are low since 1996. Nobody's applying for a mortgage.
And then now you have student loans kicking back in. Everything is lining up contrary to the benefit of this administration and the Democrat Party at large.
Well, really, it's lining up to the detriment of the American people, to the American worker. That's why I don't think McCarthy ever got it. That the American people were becoming, the Republican Party was becoming the party of the worker and the blue collar.
And McCarthy, of course, comes from California,
right?
And I don't think that California resonates with the national country or the national scene anymore.
No, I don't, and I think that's why Newsom really doesn't have much of a shot. I mean, he's got to defend what's going on in San Francisco. People are fleeing. Businesses are fleeing San Francisco.
Okay. So here's my question. We got 5 minutes to go. Marc Rotterman here in the studio with us, and I really do appreciate it. Boy, you've made this hour go so fast. What is the solution for the country? And I mean that, let's say, politically. I'm not going to say technically. We can't.
Well, we need to reduce taxes. We need to have budgeted spending. We need to reduce the size of the debt. We've got to cut the budget. No question about it. And everything should be on the table, not just non-discretionary money. I'm talking about everything. And we haven't talked about this. We're going to have to do something about Social Security and Medicare, okay, because the bill's coming due.
Not only that, we're running out of people supporting it.
Right.
It's now 2.5 people per Medicaid, per Social Security recipient right now.
And here's what the Congress always does. They wait till it's just such a problem that they have to deal with it till it's a crisis. There's a crisis happening right now with Medicare and Social Security. It's a big crisis, but we need more responsible. Reagan would deal with people if he had an 80% deal. There is too much vitriol in Washington, and it's all about the sound bites and the clicks.
Okay.
It's got to end.
Okay. I got to hold my industry accountable. We were talking about this off air. The fact that following Vietnam.
Well, I don't think your industry. When I came up, reporters like Bob Novak and Joe Alsop, who was a Democrat, they would follow a story no matter where it took them, whether it was about a Republican or a Democrat.
They were
the press corps in Washington up there now. They're propagandists. They're not reporters.
And the sad part of this is those reporters were cynical of power, regardless of the partisan activity.
That's a great way to say it.
They were cynical of power, but we've got now media that is.
They want access to the White House, and they're willing not to ask the tough questions. I mean, they asked the guy, "What kind of ice cream did he eat today?" Come on. I mean,
but wait a second.
It's juvenile, really.
Well, but that's a question he could answer.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, you got to softball the questions so that he can answer. Okay, age is a problem, and
well, it's not age; it's cognitive ability.
All right, cognitive, but it's contributed to by age. Here's the kicker: as we wrap it up, Marc Rotterman with us. The fact that he doesn't have the cognitive ability, will that force the Democrats to look at really at this 25th Amendment or some other action?
No, I think they're going to wait to the convention, and the superdelegates have the ability to call for him to step down, and they'll nominate somebody. Maybe it's not Michelle
But wait a
Obama.
second. If they do that, they're telling all the delegates, they're telling all the Democrats that and the supporters.
A lot of Democrats don't want this guy to run again.
I acknowledge.
And by the
that.
way, if you're sitting there with all the chaos and all these scandals going on, do you really want Joe Biden to be your standard bearer?
I will acknowledge that. But the problem I have is if the superdelegates do this, they're telling the rest of the country that they are in charge of Washington, D.C., not the voters, not the regular delegates at the convention.
That's true, but all they're concerned about is the power. They're not concerned about the country. Democratic Party is concerned about power. Power, not good governance, power.
All right.
So what's going to get them back in so they can keep up the Green New Deal, hand out the money for the Green New Deal, all these little slush funds that they have. That's what it's about, and their pals.
Can this be reversed? Are there enough?
Well, you're going to have. We need a Republican landslide. We need a conservative landslide.
Who are the leaders in the Republican Party at this point?
Well, I think Trump is one of the leaders.
No question.
There's no question about it. I think Jordan's a leader. I think there's men and women in the House. I like Nancy Mace. I think Matt Gaetz is going to be proven right on this. But I really think that Kevin McCarthy dropped the ball, and I was surprised that Congressman Murphy here didn't vote to oust him.
Well, and also Dan Bishop voted for McCarthy.
That's
of course,
right.
But Bishop's moving to
Attorney General.
For
He has to.
Does that happen?
Look, I think far too many people in both parties are beholden to K Street and the super PACs. A lot of that's got to end. I mean, Nancy Mace, Matt Gaetz, they don't take super PAC money. They raise $30 donations, and they're being criticized for that. Look, we've got to take some of this money out. You've got all these dark money groups like the Kochs have, and they run campaigns, and you don't know where the money comes from. But more importantly, we need more responsible people who actually care about this country and want this country to succeed. I mean, look, if you're the president of China and you're looking at what's going on, would it surprise you if tomorrow they invaded Taiwan? We're in chaos here.
We would not be able. That I think that's part of the comment. Chaos.
Yeah.
That we don't have.
Did you ever think anything like this would happen to the country we grew up in?
No. I mean, we can't even determine what a woman is.
Right. The Prime Minister of Britain just did that. He said a man is a man and a woman is a woman. Does Joe Biden believe that? That's a good question, don't you think?
It's an excellent question. And by the way, why is it we're having a hard time defining a woman, but we don't seem to have a hard time defining a man?
I'm not qualified to answer that one.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
I refuse to answer on the grounds that may incriminate me.
We're talking with Marc Rotterman, but it's true if you think about that.
I know it is.
I mean,
how did we decline so fast that we don't know what a man and a woman is in this country? I mean, it's ridiculous.
Unfortunately, we're long in tooth, and what's frightening is, do the youngsters understand what they're walking into? Marc Rotterman with us. Marc, it has been a pleasure.
It's a pleasure to be with you, my friend.
Oh, my gosh.
I enjoyed it.
Oh, this is fantastic. Okay, put this one in the books, ladies and gentlemen. Marc Rotterman here live on Viewpoints. It's been great.
Thank you, sir.